Hey guys, welcome back to the Junk Food Zombie channel. I have my last video in the series on how to set and adjust reloading dies. I may do a video on the Leaf Factory Crimp die, which was kind of a little bit of a different thing, so keep an eye out for that. I might do that. But essentially, this is the last video you need to set your reloading dies. This is your crimping and bullet seating die. Some people like to do seating and crimping in two separate operations. That's more beneficial when you're shooting rifle cartridges, especially bottleneck cartridges like 308 and 223, etc. When that bullet is being seated and crimped at the same time, that crimp starts and it's kind of scraping down the side of that bullet at that last fraction of an inch. So over long distances, if you're shooting for tight groups over long range, you might see a little bit difference in group size and accuracy if you do both in the same stage. If you separate the seating and the crimping with that, you might see some benefits. As far as handgun stuff is concerned, most people don't shoot their handguns that way. You're not going to see a difference. It's really no big deal. So doing it in one step is going to work just fine. So that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. But I will teach you how to seat the bullet without crimping it if that's what you want to do and you want to run a separate crimp die. I absolutely suggest and recommend that you use a crimp on anything because semi-automatic handguns, when your round goes into the chamber, now this is a revolver cartridge, but when your round goes into the chamber and hits the feed ramp, it pushes up back on that bullet. You want to make sure that that bullet doesn't go into the cartridge at all because that'll increase your chamber pressures, possibly dangerously so. And on a revolver, when you're shooting, if there's some recoil, inertia wants to make this bullet sit in the same place. So the bullet can actually kind of come forward in the case, in which case it may pop out the front of that cylinder, and when it's spinning in the revolver, that bullet hits the frame of the revolver and jams up the cylinder, and you don't want that either. So you want a good crimp on a handgun bullet, regardless of whether it's semi-automatic or revolver anyway. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a revolver cartridge. If I don't throw my stuff on the floor, I got a good catch there. I tried to change the lighting up in here a little bit. It was a little dimmer around the press in the other video, so I put a little lamp up there. I'm sacrificing looking awesome because I probably look a little funny around the eyes, but I'm doing this for you guys so you can see a little bit better over here. So basically, we're going to set the seating depth on a bullet. Say we're not going to crimp. The instructions on this, and every die set comes with instructions, and you'll want to read them because every manufacturer makes their dies maybe a little bit different. They might have slightly different instructions. Read the instructions. This is just to get you going. And give you a really good idea of what it entails, mostly for beginners and people who are looking to get into reloading. Be careful with your fingers around the press. You might get a boo-boo if you're not careful. What you need to do is you need to get this die body set down so it's 1/8 of an inch above this shell holder, according to these instructions, 1/8 of an inch. And what that's going to do is keep it from crimping this case. We'll run this case up into the die. Make sure we get it up in there. Okay. Now, you'll want to set that, and you want to make sure that you're not feeling any crimping action going on in there. If not, you're good. Now we can set the bullet seating depth. Now, there's two ways to do this. If you have a new bullet, which is what we're going to assume with what I'm doing here, that you've not loaded before, and you need to set the seating depth, it's going to be a trial and error thing. If you have a loaded cartridge, and all you're doing is setting the seating depth on this loaded on your new rounds. Say you've got a bunch of these bullets already, and you just want to make identical cartridges to what you have. All you'll do is set that loaded round up in there, and turn the seating stem down until it contacts that bullet, and then you'll tighten up the lock ring on the seating stem, and then you're good to go. And then you've got your seating depth set, and then you can just start putting your new cartridges in there with the bullets and pop them out. They'll all be set to the right depth because you've already have a gauge to go by. But we're going to assume that you're setting new bullets and you need to do this and get it set. So you get your cartridge in there, your case in there, and your bullet. Make sure your mouth is flared properly. And what you'll do is you'll bring the seating stem all the way out, run that up into the die, which I'm not hitting here. Hang on a second. There we go. I'm not aligned properly, I guess. There we go. Sometimes it's good to have your die a little loose when you run the cartridge in, and that'll help align it, and then you can snug it down and your die will be aligned with that cartridge. Because sometimes, because these threads are kind of large, the die will move slightly inside the press. So once you get that snug down, it won't move. So you might want to leave that loose until you get that cartridge in there and then tighten it down. So what you do is you now start your seating stem down until it makes contact with the bullet. And you feel that. And then you'll watch. You'll make your adjustments. You'll go down a little more. Come up. Keep making your adjustments. Your reloading book will tell you the overall length for the cartridge you're loading. Or if it's got a crimp groove in it or a cannelure where you know it needs to crimp, that you know that case mouth needs to be at that groove, then you'll just kind of look at it and set it at the right place. Because that groove is where it's supposed to be crimped, so that's what you're going to be adjusting for. And you just keep adjusting your seating stem little by little. Just you don't want to overdo it, because then you gotta get a bullet puller to pull the bullet out and start all over again. And you just keep going until you get to that right adjustment. And we're almost there. This bullet has a cannelure in it. Okay, so we're about right where we want to be. So what you do now is you put that up in there and then tighten down that little lock ring. That's if you're just seating it and you're not crimping. And then you would just take a little pair of channel locks and tighten that up just a little bit, a little more than finger tight, and you're good to go. Now your bullet seating is set and you're done. Now if you're crimping, that's a different story. Now you got to undo this seating stem. Oh, Junk Food Zombie, why are you undoing it? You just set it. Well, the die is not set to crimp, so now we have to adjust the die body to crimp. So if you were to set this lower to crimp, then that seating stem would essentially be lower and push the bullet too far down. But what we've done is now we've made a loaded round at the proper length, like what we had before. So when this seating stem is fully out, we're going to keep it out of the way. We're going to set the crimp, and once we set the crimp, then we're just going to use this as a template to put this back down on. But we'll show you that in a minute. So to adjust your crimp, you'll want to loosen this up, your lock ring now. Get your cartridge up in there, get it aligned with the die, and you'll turn this die body down. You want to make sure that your lock ring is up and not interfering. And you're going to run this die body down until you feel it contact that case mouth. You'll feel a resistance. Now you're starting to get to where it's going to crimp. The instructions for these dies tell you to go 1/8 of a turn. So you'll pull this cartridge out because it makes it hard to turn. Turn it the 1/8 of a turn and then lock your lock ring down. Just snug it down, finger tight. No more than that, because we may have to make adjustments. And then you check your crimp. Pop it up in there. You'll feel it. You'll feel a little bit of resistance in there in the stroke. Not a lot. You don't want to crimp the crap out of it. And then you'll check your crimp. Now, this crimp looks pretty good. Now, if you decided your crimp needed to be crimped a little more, then you could go another 1/8 of a turn. Always go small amounts. 1/8 of a turn, 1/16 of a turn if you're getting really close, because you can't uncrimp it. So generally with dies, make your adjustments in small increments until things are right, and that keeps you from having to go back and undo things, and it's good practice. So that crimp looks pretty good, so I don't have to change it. You can adjust it more if you need to. This bullet has a cannelure, but it's a shallow cannelure, so you're not going to get a deep crimp with it like you would with, say, something with a crimp groove in it, where you really see that roll crimp going into that crimp groove. So this die is set where we want it. So since it's set where we want it, I'm going to set that cartridge back up in there, make sure everything's aligned, and then I'm going to snug down that lock ring there. And what I need to do is tighten this lock ring, this set screw here. Now every manufacturer makes their dies a little differently. Their lock rings are a little different. RCBS has several. They have these lock rings that are knurled with the set screws, and you put a couple balls of lead shot or a ball of lead shot in there, and that keeps the set screw from messing up the threads on the die, because you don't want to mess up the threads on the die. That lead will cushion that. You tighten that down, and you're good to go. Your crimp is set. Now, different companies, like I said, like Dillon, it just has lock nuts. Now, there's no screw, there's no set screw for these, because this is a progressive setup. These dies, you get them set, you tighten them down with a wrench, you leave them alone, they don't move, because your bullet goes through your cartridge goes through different stations. unlike a single stage where you do one die, you size your cases, and then you have to take that die out and put a new one in. So you need this to be able to come out and go back in. So that's why we have lockable die rings. RCBS now makes ones with flats on them and a set screw. They also make split rings. Hornady makes split rings where the lock ring is split here, and then the set screw actually comes in through the side and is threaded through both sides of that split, and as it tightens, it squeezes around that lock ring around the die body. I think those are the best because there's no danger of ruining your threads. It squeezes it, it locks it down. It's easy to deal with. They work great. Lee has an O-ring inside, and they work okay, but they're probably about my least favorite as far as their lock rings are concerned. They make good stuff, good dies though. Okay, so here we are. We've got our crimp set. Now we got to reset that seating stem for the bullet depth. We've already got the bullet set. It's at the right depth. We're good to go. It's very simple at this point. You put that handle all the way down, and you put this seating stem down until it makes contact with the top of that bullet. Okay, we're there. Make sure that your little lock ring doesn't hit the die while you're turning and jam you up and make you think you hit the bullet. Make sure you've always got some space there. We've contacted the top of the bullet. We don't want to go any deeper than that. Just snug it up. Finger tight on that, and with these, generally you want to tighten them just a little tiny bit tighter. You grab a pair of channel locks, very gently grab it, and then just snug it just a touch more than finger tight. You don't need to tighten the crap out of any of this stuff. Just finger tight on the lock ring because you'll have the set screw to tighten it down, and you want to be able to get it out by hand. If you tighten it with a wrench, you're going to have to use a wrench to get it out. They're not going anywhere if you go just over finger tight, and that's all you need. Now your seating stem is set, your crimp is set, and you're good to go. It's going to make the cartridges identical every time. It's going to seat the bullet at the same time when it gets to the top of that stroke. It's going to crimp it at the last fraction of an inch. And that's it. So now, since this is locked down and this is locked down, nothing's going to move. You can tighten it by hand and then undo it by hand. Snugging that up by hand is all you need to do when you're reloading. If you're going to do a ton of rounds, just check it every once in a while and make sure it didn't loosen up, and you're good. That's pretty much the most involved die. The sizing die is very simple, and so is the mouth flaring die. They're very easy to set. So this one was a little bit longer of video, but it is a little more in depth than the others. So that's all there is to it, guys. It's not hard for you guys who are just starting to reload, or you're looking to get into reloading and you're wondering how difficult it is. This is probably about the most difficult thing you need to worry about in reloading as far as technical stuff. The most important part is safety, using published load data and being very careful, very consistent with everything you do, and just safety when it comes to reloading, because you want to keep all your fingers, and one wrong charge can really be catastrophic. So safety is the most important. Setting your dies properly is part of safety, because setting bullets too deep increases pressures. You want to be careful. This is not the type of thing you rush. Take your time. You've got an instruction booklet. I like to give you guys something to see, because some people learn a little bit better being able to see things. So that's what I'm trying to do here for you guys and help you out. That's about it. I can't think anything else on top of that. You guys are set. I've got you set on all the dies. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I've got a lot of people who watch the channel who are pretty experienced reloaders, so they can always chime in and help you. I'm good with replying because I don't have that many subscribers, so I don't get tons of comments that I can't keep up with. I can keep up with them, and I pretty much do so every day. So leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer it. And I will catch you guys on the next video. I think we're going to do a little something with the automatic primer feeder here. So we'll catch you guys on the next one, and thanks for watching. Bye.